sun's up. It's beautiful. Although it's cold today. It's been cold for past few mornings. Temperatures have been dipping down. And I've been stuck in the van for a couple days. It's been 20-mile-an-hour winds out there, which out on the desert, it's kicking up a lot of dust, so it's not so much fun to be outdoors. But I've had some things to do inside, so that's been good. It's worked out okay. So I thought I'd spend this time and talk a little bit about what it's like to live this life in a van at 70 years old. Some of you may think it's really hard or really weird, like some of my family members and friends, I think. They wonder why I do it, what I'm doing it for. Am I making money? Am I doing it for money? I'm not doing it for money. I don't make any money. At least not yet. I do it because I think a lot of us in life, we get to a point where we think, is this what it's all about? Living in a house. I was retired at the time when I did this. And I was thinking, do I want to spend the rest of my life like everyone I've known in the past? As they've gotten older, they some of them find hobbies to do, and some of them keep very busy. Other people just kind of sit around, and I don't know, I don't want to say it this way, but it really feels like they're just sitting around waiting for it all to end. I couldn't do that. I wasn't bored. I was doing volunteer work. I was keeping really busy. Still going out and doing things. I just felt like it was a waste of life to spend retirement days, not being creative. I think that's what it was. Because when I was younger and had a career, I was creative. I was a photographer, so I was very creative all of my life. And I felt like I lost that creativity. So I needed a change. And I'd been hearing about the van life on YouTube and other sources like that. Very interested in it. Of course, scared to death, like most people probably are when they first start out doing it. The thoughts of giving up a normal life and a home and all of that. The regular routine that you've had your whole life. But I've always been kind of a rebel and kind of a nonconformist. I was ready. I was ready to take the jump. I said, what the hell? Do it. What's the worst that could happen? It's not a life or death situation. It's not a terminal illness. You're alive, you're breathing, you can move around still, so take advantage of it. So I jumped into it, bought the van, built it out, as you saw, and just, it was my birthday actually, my 65th birthday. I handed over my keys to my place, and I got in the van. It was all finished build. It was pretty much finished. I did a few little things on the road to make it more livable, but pretty much it was livable when I handed over my key. And I got on the road. And I think that first week it was really scary. It was like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I just do this? It was like kind of like a dream you wake up from. Like, am I really living in a van on the street? And that kind of didn't last very long. Immediately, I had things I had to do. I had to make sure I had gas in the car, that I had my bank and all that, my address, and whatever else I needed to live in a van all set up. I had to get food into the refrigerator. If I decided to take off into the woods somewhere and camp, I had to make sure I had all my supplies. So there was so much to think about in that first week that whole fear kind of faded away. I had a purpose. I was busy. I had things I had to do. I had to think about. I didn't have time to be scared, really. I think that's what happened, what it came down to. So once I got on the road, and actually, because I stayed in San Diego for probably a couple weeks doing that, sleeping on the street. This was at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic. So I was pretty fearful. I took it very seriously, and I was pretty fearful about being around a lot of people. And it was pretty crowded where I was. So I decided to just take off. And I drove up the coast of California, stayed in a few little towns, little beach towns that I felt safe in because they were small populations. And then I just kept driving. I just didn't, there's really nowhere in California to park along the coast. It's really hard, as anybody who's tried to camp along the coast of California. You have to rent a pretty expensive campground. There's no free camping. And I just kept driving for that reason. And eventually I found myself at the very furthest northeast corner of the state of Washington on the Olympic Peninsula, across the Puget Sound from Seattle. And it was a tiny little town called Port Townsend. Small little Victorian town from the 1800s that was now a little kind of artist community. A little hippie-ish, I guess. Health food stores, that kind of thing. But I fell in love with it. Just fell in love with it. And I ended up staying there for maybe, I think the first time it was about 9 months. I stayed through the winter. It snowed. I was freezing cold. I had no heat in the van at that point. I just stayed bundled up all the time and kind of hidden in the van. But I was fine with that because I was afraid. I was afraid of people. I was afraid of being around people and getting COVID. So it worked out for me. I was able to relax. And then after that, I decided to just leave and start traveling. And I got on the road, and that was kind of the beginning of my travels. I just didn't have the fear of the pandemic anymore, even though it was still raging. This was in the middle of it, first year or two. I stayed to myself. I went camping, and that's when I started doing the real BLM dispersed camping, because I was able to go out far away from anyone. And it was wonderful. And I'd go to little towns and pick up food, stock up on supplies. That's the beginning of my van life. And so I wanted to touch on a couple things about that fear of changing your life and doing something totally different, especially living in a vehicle, which a lot of people think, oh my God, I couldn't do that. I've had people make comments, or just friends and family say, how do you do that? Like, why do you do that? I mean, the why is just a personal thing, but how I do it, it's just like living in a house. It's really no different. You're just mobile. You're not stuck in one place. But it's all the same things. I have to shop. I have to go to the bathroom. I have to take a shower. And you just find different ways of doing these because they're not at hand. They're not right there at your fingertips. But having said that, I think that's the draw for me. I love the challenge. I love the experience of doing something different, or trying to find a way to do something that isn't going to be as easy as it was when you lived in a house. One of the best things that happened was I was all of a sudden richer and had more money in the bank than in my whole life. And I'm talking about when I retired at 62, I took Social Security. And that's all I had. So you know, Social Security is less when you take it early like that. I think my monthly check was about $1,400 or $1,500. And I did have some savings, an emergency fund, which I still have. I haven't really spent any money. As a matter of fact, I've saved more money. I probably live on about, I would say maybe $600 a month. That's my food and my gas and incidentals. Oh, I have my phone service is Visible, and it's $35 a month, unlimited data. What else do I pay for? Car insurance, roadside assistance, from Good Sam. I pay a little more because I figured being out on this road, these roads that I travel on, and being far from a lot of cities, I wanted to make sure I had roadside assistance that would tow at least 100 miles. I don't think I have any other bills. I had no debt, no credit cards, nothing like that. I wasn't paying anything off. Didn't owe anybody any money, so pretty much half of my check each month just goes into the bank. So yeah, it's been financially, it's actually been better. I can remember most of my life as a working stiff, I worried about money, living paycheck to paycheck most of the time. Not all the time, but to live this life and not have to think about expenses, I don't think that's something the younger van lifers do. They're always kind of scrambling to find part-time jobs or remote jobs to work out of their van. I don't have to think about that at all. It's a real relief. So that's the financial end of it. It really hasn't been a problem for me. Another aspect of van life is people talk about getting bored. They'll ask, aren't you bored? And my answer to that is, well, if you're sitting at home in your house, aren't you bored? And of course they always say, no, I have a circle of friends in the town I live. Well, that's one thing you don't have in van life. So if you're a very social person and you need to be around people all the time, this probably isn't going to work for you. There are people like here in Quartzsite, they come down for the whole winter, so they could be here close to 6 months, and they stay in one place and they create a circle of friends, or they come back every year and have the same friends that they hook up with. Those are the people that really need to be social. They just can't live without that, people around them. I'm the opposite. I've always been more, and I think a lot of people I've met living this life are this way, the same as me. Social activities are minimal, and that's the way I like them. Interaction with other humans is minimal. I love sitting around and talking to people, meeting new people, and maybe spending a couple days with them, but that's about my limit. I really prefer to spend 90% of my time alone. So this life has worked out really good for me in that sense. I'm able to be alone when I want, and if I want to meet someone, it's very easy. You just pull into a campsite that's crowded or has more people, and you start up a conversation. Most people are very friendly out here. That's the one thing that's probably the most noticeable. When you live on the road like this, the people in these dispersed camping areas are just really nice people. I think it's because you're like-minded, you have all the same interests usually. But yeah, very friendly, very helpful, and very willing to give you your space. So we kind of all respect each other's peaceful time, quiet time. Another subject living this lifestyle is safety. A lot of people are very concerned with safety doing this lifestyle. And a lot of my friends and family will say, be safe, be safe, be safe out there. You know, I think they think it's much more dangerous doing this than it is living in a town. And I'll tell you, I've lived in many towns. I've lived in big cities. I've lived in small towns. And none of those places did I feel safe. I actually feel safer alone in the woods, in the van, or outside the van even. Well, unless there's bears. I don't always feel safe around bears if I know bears are in the area. But as far as safety, like safety from other people or serial killers, I don't know what people are thinking. That's what I think they're thinking. There could be serial killers out there in the woods. 5 years, I've never had a problem. Never even had any fears, any issues, any suspicious things happen. Not at all. Zero. I know a lot of people will make van life videos and they'll title them, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe what I saw," or "Oh, this was so scary." someone was following me, someone was watching me. That fear is what they're talking about. They fear these things. They see someone park near them and they're way out in the woods, and they immediately think that person is suspicious. But I've never had any problems. I had more problems when I lived in a town with my neighbors. I feared my neighbors more than I've ever feared anything out here. So I think it's about your level of fear. What kind of a person are you? Are you suspicious? Are you fearful of everything? If you are, then you're going to be fearful out here too. So you need to deal with that first before you start this kind of a lifestyle. The freedom you get from making your own choices, doing what you want, going where you want, when you want, not having to answer to anybody else, that's the freedom that I enjoy. That's the freedom that I wanted my whole life. But when you're working, you're stuck in a mortgage, you're stuck in bill payments, credit card debt, just everyday life. You don't feel free. You never feel free. You always feel like a slave, like you're trapped somewhere and you can't get out of it. I think one benefit for me is I didn't have kids, so I never had that to tie me down. So that's another luxury I had. I call it a luxury. I never wanted kids, so it wasn't an issue for me. I know it is for some people, and that's okay too. Kids can be great, and they can be great support. So yeah, the freedom of moving around, doing what you want, living life, on your terms, not dictated by the society around you. Of course, you have social things you have to deal with living in a van also. You're not exempt from any of those. I'm not living off the grid in some wood shack up in Alaska somewhere, like some people do. So I'm still in towns. I'm still here in America, in the southwest U.S. currently, and I have things I have to deal with. Like I said, I have to go to the dentist, so I have medical problems too. And I still have to have a bank, and I have to have a post office, and I have to have a registered vehicle. So you're not exempt from everything. It's not that kind of freedom. But it's just the freedom kind of in your head. I think that's where that freedom comes from. It's freedom to be yourself. I think this also comes with being older. You get to a point where you don't worry what people think about you or what you're doing. I certainly don't at all. I know people worry about me. I know people think what I'm doing is different and maybe dangerous or strange, but like I said, I don't have those fears myself, so I'm not going to take on someone else's fears. So that kind of freedom, that freedom of feeling like you have to satisfy other people, yeah, that completely goes away as you get older. And I think that goes for even if you're not living this van life. But van life on top of that gives you even more freedom. I was watching a movie the other night, and the woman in the movie was reading a book, and she quoted from the book. I think it was Albert Camus, and the quote was, let me get it right here. The lost human freedom is to choose one's own way. And that just came up in the movie just the other night, and that really resonated with me. The lost human freedom is to choose one's own way. Think about that. A lot of people don't get to choose their own way. They're at the whims of their job, their lifestyle, everything happening around them in society, watching the news too much. A lot of people don't feel that freedom of being able to make their own way. But speaking on the fact of being a senior, 70 years old and doing this, I am pretty lucky at the present time. I'm not on any doctor's care or prescription medicines. Fairly healthy, I guess. I don't have any issues right now, so I'm able to get around and do what I want. I don't have to worry about being in one place. I know a lot of people out there don't have the luxury of doing this because they have medical issues and they have to stay put in near their doctor, or they have to travel back to their doctor a lot. So it's not for everybody, but if you're able, if you're physically and mentally able, it's the best thing I've ever done. I think about my past of all the places I lived, different towns, different homes, and they were all great, but nothing's been as exciting and as fun as this. It's made me feel younger. I feel like I'm a young person doing this. You know how young people usually do these kind of things? And you don't find it so much with our age group, but it's really made me feel like I'm young again. It's given me more vitality and more energy because I'm out here struggling a little bit. And when I think about it, in my past, my best days were when I didn't have much. In the very beginning, when I was in my early 20s and moved out of my parents' house, it was a struggle. And at the time, it was a struggle that I didn't like, but looking back on it, I embraced that struggle. That struggle was what made me feel like I was really living life when I look back at it now. In hindsight, it was what made life exciting, is the struggle. And that's where I am again at 70. I feel like I'm, although I told you I'm not struggling financially, it's a little more of a struggle to live in a van. You have to think about where you're going to go tomorrow. What's it going to be like when you get there? Is it going to be scary? Is it going to be fun? Are you going to be bored? Are you going to be too far away from people and start to feel lonely? All those things come up. I find so much to fill my day with, especially if, like I said, if you can get around and go on hikes or bike rides or kayaking or paddleboarding. Those are all the kind of things I like to do. So having those kind of hobbies, I think, is important. If you're out here and you don't have any hobbies, you could get bored. What else is there to consider when you're doing van life at 70? Let me think. It's hard to think because I just live life day to day in the present moment, and I don't plan a whole lot. I don't think a whole lot about the future like I used to. I just kind of go about my day, and I kind of think about what I'm going to do tomorrow and the next day, but I don't think about long-term plans. I don't even know where I'm going next week because I am leaving Quartzsite finally. Like I mentioned, I think I've been here a little too long. It was fun. It was something different for me. It was a social time. Met a lot of people, did a lot of things, but that's not the norm for me. The norm is being off in the wilderness by myself and discovering new things out in nature. I feel a little stagnant being here for so long. So I do have that plan. I will be moving on in the next week. The next step here is I'm heading down to Yuma, Arizona, and I'll be staying at some BLM land down there so I can cross over into Mexico and get some dental work done. After that, I don't know. It's all up in the air, but I will keep you posted. So I know some of you out there watching this channel, the reason you watch it is the reason I started watching these kind of channels before I started this, is you wonder if you could do this, or you're planning on doing this and you're watching to learn. Well, first of all, I hope you do learn something from me. That's one of the main reasons I do this. I learned everything I know about van life from watching other van lifers on YouTube. So I'm hoping to add to that. I'm hoping that you learn something new, especially since a lot of the YouTube videos are younger people, at least the popular ones. There are a lot of seniors doing it, and you can find those videos. So hopefully this will give you some insight and some ideas, and maybe dispel some of those fears and give you a little push if you need that. But I say just do it. Think about it, think about it and consider all your options, like I said, and do you have doctor's worries? Do you have medical worries? Things like that are probably the only thing that can hold you back. Otherwise, if you're fairly healthy and you have the means and the money to do it, I say do it. It's something you'll never regret. Like I said, 5 years now I've been doing this and I haven't regretted a moment. As a matter of fact, I wished I had started it earlier. When I was younger, I had done what some of these young YouTube van lifers are doing, and working remotely and living out of their vans. I would have done this way back when, if I knew about it. So yeah, I say if you're thinking about doing this, hell, get up and do it. What have you got, what else are you going to do? If you have a wonderful life in your little condo in Florida or wherever you are, and that's how you're enjoying your retirement, good for you. I'm happy for you. But if you're like me and you're kind of antsy and it sounds like an interesting challenge in your life and an interesting lifestyle to live, go for it. Don't let anything hold you back. And certainly don't let other people hold you back. Don't let family and friends try to tell you not to do it. I even have a suggestion. Don't tell anyone you're going to do it. Just do it. If this is what you want to do, do it. Because if you start telling people about it, they're going to start coming up with reasons you shouldn't. They're probably not going to push you forward and support you. Maybe, but if you take that chance and they are unsupportive, it's going to make you think twice about doing it. So I say just go do it and have fun. Enjoy your retirement. Enjoy your later years. If you're young out there and you're watching this, don't look towards your senior years as a death sentence. Senior years are some of the most fun times. You let go a lot of your fears and your worries, and you start to live life again like you did when you were very young and didn't have any financial worries or where you were going to sleep worries when you were a little kid living at your parents' house. You have that kind of freedom again. And I think that might have something to do with, you have less years ahead of you, so you want to make the most of them. At least that's how it is for me. So this has been my personal experience. It's not going to be everybody's experience, but I suggest you go out there and find your own way. Live your own life. Live your own experience. And maybe you'll even start a YouTube channel and share it with people like I do. So good luck to you, and thanks for listening. So again, I appreciate you watching and sticking with me, and thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who have subscribed. And to those that just like to watch and not subscribe, that's fine too. So yeah, I think it's time to get back on the road and have some fun and some adventures.